Before we begin, imagine this for a moment. You dive into a raging river to save a child you've never met. You fight the current, you battle the water, and when you reach the shore, gasping, bleeding, you expect nothing in return. But instead, you find a woman standing before you, a mother whose ancestors follow a law older than time. And according to that law, the moment you saved her child's life, you became her husband. This is the story of a stranger, a tribe, and a destiny written by the river itself. Make sure you subscribe, share, and comment. Now let's start this video. The river was calm only moments before the storm of panic broke across its surface. Ethan had ridden through this land many times, but on this day he heard a cry that froze his blood. A small boy was struggling against the current, hands flailing, face dipping beneath the water. Without hesitation, Ethan leapt from his horse, boots sinking into mud as he plunged into the river. The current was strong, smashing him against hidden rocks, but he fought through it, grabbed the boy, and pushed toward the shore. The child was limp when Ethan pulled him out, but breathing. As Ethan knelt beside him, dripping and panting, he heard pounding footsteps approaching. A woman burst through the trees, her long dark braids swinging and her breath ragged with fear. Her eyes locked on her son, and tears broke freely across her face as she dropped to her knees. She pressed her child to her chest, whispering words Ethan didn't understand, Apache words filled with relief and trembling gratitude. When she looked up at Ethan, her gratitude was mixed with something else, shock, disbelief, and the weight of a law older than the trees around them. Ethan took a cautious step back, unsure of her expression. The boy coughed, beginning to wake, and the woman laid a gentle hand on his cheek before standing. Her voice was soft but carried strength as she addressed Ethan. "You saved my child from drowning. According to the law of my ancestors, you are now my husband." Ethan blinked, convinced he'd misheard. He opened his mouth to refuse politely, to tell her he meant no such intention, but the words died. She wasn't joking. Her people believed in sacred bonds, and life debts were not small obligations. The woman studied him with unwavering calm, as if she expected resistance but was prepared for whatever followed. Ethan felt the weight of her gaze. He wasn't afraid, but he was deeply confused. He'd saved people before and never been offered marriage as repayment. The wind rustled leaves overhead as he tried to find the right words. "Ma'am, I didn't mean to intrude on your life. I did what any man should. I don't expect anything for it." She listened quietly, her expression unreadable, but her silence made Ethan feel he was missing something vital. She introduced herself as Nina, her voice steady again. "In my tribe, a man who saves a child becomes bound to the mother. This bond is not a debt. It is a blessing." Ethan swallowed and gestured awkwardly toward the trees. "I respect your traditions, but I don't belong to your world." Nina stepped closer, her tone gentle, not forceful. "The bond is not forced, but it is recognized. You entered our river. You saved my only child. You stepped into my life at the will of the spirits." Ethan stared at her, the river still dripping from his clothes, realizing this wasn't something he could ride away from without care. The boy, still weak, tugged lightly at Nina's skirt and pointed at Ethan with sleepy gratitude. That simple gesture hit Ethan harder than any words. He'd grown up alone, lost his parents young, and spent years as a drifter, never truly belonging anywhere. And now, out of nowhere, he stood on sacred land being offered something he'd never imagined, a place, a purpose, maybe even a family. Nina lifted her child into her arms, and with a soft nod of her head, she motioned for Ethan to follow. "My people will want to meet the man who saved Little Hawk." Ethan hesitated, but he followed, knowing he couldn't refuse without causing offense. The forest path winded through lush undergrowth, birds chirping as if unaware of the strange fate unfolding. Nina walked gracefully despite the weight of her son, and every so often she glanced back to ensure Ethan kept up. He couldn't help observing her, calm, fierce, carrying the weight of responsibility with quiet dignity. He met many women in frontier towns, but none like her. The closer they came to the village, the more tension coiled in Ethan's chest. He had no idea how her people would react to seeing him walk in beside her. When they emerged from the trees, a cluster of wooden lodges and campfires came into view. Several villagers stopped what they were doing and watched. Some whispered, others narrowed their eyes. Ethan felt every gaze like a needle. Nina stepped ahead protectively, her chin raised. She spoke in their language, sharp and firm, recounting the events. As her words carried through the space, Reactions shifted, shock, murmurs, and then a deeper surprise as she delivered the part about the ancestral law. Several elders stepped forward, leaning on carved staffs. One of the elders, a tall man with silver hair braided down his back, studied Ethan with piercing eyes. "So this is the man chosen by the river." Ethan straightened, unsure what that meant. The elder placed a hand on Nina's shoulder and nodded solemnly. "The spirits bind paths for reasons we cannot ignore." Ethan opened his mouth to respond but stopped. This wasn't a conversation he controlled. It was a judgment, a cultural decree, something woven into their identity. Nina explained again what Ethan had told her, that he did not expect marriage as repayment. The elder listened thoughtfully. A life saved is a bond forged, but that bond can take many forms. Marriage is one, but only if accepted by both. Ethan felt some tension ease from his shoulders. He respected the tribe, but he wasn't ready to commit to something sacred without understanding it. Nina stood quietly beside her boy, who clung to her leg and peeked shyly at Ethan. The elder gestured to a fire circle where the tribe gathered. "You will stay as our guest, eat with us, learn who we are. Only then can you decide what your heart chooses." Ethan agreed, realizing this situation demanded respect and patience. The tribe welcomed him cautiously, offering food and blankets, and the evening unfolded with stories and quiet curiosity. Little Hawk stuck close to him, surprising Ethan with his innocent trust. Ethan found himself answering questions from curious villagers, where he came from, how he lived, why he had been alone near their river. He offered honest answers, revealing parts of himself he rarely shared. The tribe listened without judgment, treating his words with importance. As the fire crackled, Nina sat beside Ethan, their shoulders barely inches apart. She spoke softly so only he could hear. "In our ways. Marriage is not ownership, it is partnership, friendship, protection, shared life." Ethan looked at her profile illuminated by firelight. She wasn't pressuring him, just explaining. He appreciated that more than she knew. "What happens if I say no?" he asked gently. Nina didn't hesitate. "Then the spirits will guide each of us on our separate path. You will always be welcome here, and my son will grow knowing the man who saved him." Her calm acceptance surprised Ethan. He'd expected offense or disappointment. Instead, he found a woman grounded in understanding and honor. He realized she wasn't asking for a husband, she was honoring a law older than her and respecting his freedom at the same time. Little Hawk sleepily climbed into her lap, curling against her, and something about that sight tugged at Ethan's chest. He'd never known the warmth of a family hearth. The firelight, the laughter, the stories, it was something he had always ridden past, never experiencing. Hours later, when the night grew cool, a small lodge was prepared for Ethan. Nina escorted him there, carrying a small lantern. The soft glow danced across her features, highlighting a quiet kindness. Before leaving, she paused at the entrance and met his gaze. "Whether you choose to stay or leave, you have my gratitude, and you have my respect." Ethan wasn't sure how to respond. Her sincerity stunned him in ways he hadn't expected. As she walked away, he stood at the threshold, long after she disappeared into the shadows. Inside, the lodge felt warmer than anything he'd slept in for months. There was a woven blanket, a mat, and a small bowl of herbs meant to bring peaceful rest. Ethan sat down heavily, replaying the day's events. He'd come here as a stranger. Now he was tied to a law older than any he'd known. A child's life had connected him to a world that felt strangely familiar, even though he'd never seen it before. The tribe's laughter echoed in his memory, gentle and welcoming. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel like a drifter. Morning sunlight filtered into the lodge, and Ethan stepped outside to find Little Hawk waiting with an eager smile. Nina stood a distance away, watching silently. Ethan crouched down as the boy offered him a small carved wooden bird. "It's for you," Nina said softly. He carved it during dawn hours, a gift for the man who saved him. Ethan accepted the carving, touched beyond words. When their eyes met, something unspoken passed between him and Nina, something warm, genuine, and quietly growing. As the day unfolded, the tribe invited Ethan to join their tasks. He helped the hunters prepare arrows, assisted the women in grinding herbs, and watched the children play. Everywhere he went, people acknowledged him with cautious respect. In moments alone, Ethan found himself watching Nina, how she worked, how she led her child, how she moved with calm confidence. Each moment deepened his admiration for her. Not because of the law, but because of who she was as a mother, a daughter of her people, a resilient woman. When afternoon shadows lengthened, the elder approached Ethan once more. You have seen our ways. You have broken bread with our families. Tell me, outsider, do you still feel like a stranger? Ethan thought carefully before speaking. No, not a stranger, just a man trying to understand where he belongs. The elder nodded, satisfied. Belonging is not given. It is discovered, chosen by the heart, and your heart is opening its eyes. Ethan wasn't sure how much of that was true, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt. That evening, Nina invited him to walk near the river, the same river where everything had changed just a day before. They walked in silence, the water shimmering under sunset. Finally, she spoke. I know this world of mine is different from yours, but I do not ask you to become someone you are not. I only ask for truth. What do you feel? Ethan hesitated, then spoke honestly. I feel drawn to all this, to your people, to your son, to you, but I'm afraid. Nina's expression softened. Fear is natural, but it is not a chain unless you let it be. The river whispered between them, carrying the memories of the moment that bound their fates. Ethan stared at its surface, thinking of the boy's small hands reaching for life. That moment had brought him here, to a place where he finally felt seen. He turned to Nina. I won't make promises tonight, but I won't run either. She nodded gently, accepting his words with grace. Then stay, learn, let the spirits show you what path is yours. They stood there until the sky turned dark, the river reflecting moonlight like scattered silver. That night, Ethan lay awake in his lodge, listening to distant drums and soft singing from the village. He felt something inside him shifting, slowly, steadily. The world he'd always searched for might have been waiting for him here all along. The ancestral law wasn't a trap. It was an invitation, a doorway to a future he never imagined. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan found himself wanting to walk through it. Days passed, and Ethan felt the shift more clearly with every sunrise. Little Hawk followed him everywhere, laughing, learning, trusting without hesitation. Nina spoke to him often now, not as a stranger tied by law, but as someone slowly becoming a part of her world. Ethan helped gather wood, protected the village from a prowling cougar, and shared meals with the elders who once doubted him. Each act wove him deeper into their lives, until the village no longer looked at him with caution, but with quiet acceptance. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Ethan found Nina waiting by the river. She stood where he'd first saved her son, the water whispering at her feet. When he approached, she met his gaze with a softness that held no pressure, only truth. Have you decided your path? She asked. Ethan looked at her, then at Little Hawk playing nearby, and felt his answer settle naturally into his chest. I have, he said gently. If you'll have me, I choose to stay. Nina's smile bloomed like sunrise. Then the spirits have spoken. And beneath the fading sky, their new life quietly began, chosen not by law, but by heart.